Jennifer, thanks for joining me for a conversation today to share your story about what you have been doing in the arena of teacher research. And I really would love it if you would start by just introducing yourself a little bit and tell us about what got you started in moving into thinking about yourself as a researcher, and then how you've taken that even further to thinking about how your research influences others.
Well, my name is Jennifer Iskett, and I teach in a school district that's really close to Fort Worth, Texas, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I'm a member of the North Star of Texas Writing Project, and that's sort of the Writing Project Summer Institute was my first introduction to teacher research, where I first even heard that idea of action research that you could. My background was literature, so I was more into like sort of scholarly research, and this idea that you could do research in the field as a teacher was really empowering to me. We started out with the writing project. We had a grant and we did some action research on teaching writing for English language learners. And then I kind of evolved into just sort of doing it for my own classroom on classroom discussion. So I've worked the last several years trying to hone my students' listening and speaking skills and get them to use those listening and speaking skills to understand, to read better, to create better discourse in the classroom, and also to build empathy with each other, because that is something that I found was a real struggle for teenagers in general, but especially I work with a lot of high achieving teenagers who tend to focus on school as competition and wanted to try to figure out how to combat that. So those are some of my questions that I've moved into researching.
And how has your the work that you've been doing? What are you learning from that, and are you sharing that with others?
Yes, so I I find there's a point in a teaching career where you move to a point where you need what Dr. Leslie Patterson calls the third space, and you sort of need a place outside your campus and outside your personal life, and you need this sort of other place where you can grow professionally. And Writing Project provided that for me, but also I found that I was doing a lot of things in my classroom, and I needed to find critical friends. I needed to find colleagues who could give me feedback on that work and tell me if it was working. I have a very specific context, and I wanted to see if it would work in other contexts, and I had to go outside the walls of my classroom. So the first thing I did, which I resisted for a long time, was I started a blog. And I resisted that because I thought, I don't have time to do that. I can live my life or I can blog about it, but I don't see that I can do both. And I didn't think I had time to do that, but that was very empowering because it gave me this place to go and put my ideas, and people could read them, and then they could provide feedback. And then I joined Twitter, and that gave me a whole access to a whole bunch of other people that I come to conferences and meet. And I'm, oh, I know you from Twitter. So that's kind of how I started spreading my ideas. That led into some other things. I was able to collaborate with a colleague of mine who's a math teacher, and we wrote an article for English Journal together. And so I've collaborated with people outside my department, people in other schools through the Writing Project, and now people sort of all over the United States, and even some people from Europe have contacted me about classroom discussion and things like that. So.
Yeah, nice. So you can feel that impact and that spread out. I'm real curious to hear a little bit more about the collaboration that you did with your colleague and math teacher friend, and what that looked like, what you found, and then how maybe what you learned from that has continued to have an influence.
So that was really interesting because he wanted to use discussion, and he was really fascinated by this idea of discussion. And I use this method called Hard-Kness, which he actually went to and became trained in that method after he heard me speak, and he came back and he was really interested. But there was no one in the math department who was interested in doing discussion at all. I mean, and so and really nobody else in even the English department was all that interested, and I'll take critical friends where I can get them. So we were like, okay, so let's talk about it. And he's like, I'm going to take your handouts and I'm going to figure out how this works, and you have to kind of adapt it. And then he came up with, in math, he figured out he had to create this way to talk through a problem, because that's what students didn't know. It wasn't as natural or organic as it was to talk about a text. Although I did a lot of prepping, but we didn't really talk about that. And he came up with this problem solving method. Here's how you talk through a math problem. And I looked at that and I thought, wow, that's awesome. I can use that to talk through a text. And so I took his math solving problem solving process and made a text problem solving process. I thought, I think a text is kind of like a problem, and we'll work on this. And so then we were like, oh, this really works. And our students started saying things like, they came to me like, you're making math harder for me. Now we have to talk in math. But then when they were in my class, they were saying, okay, guys, this is like when we're in calculus and we have to talk about this, so let's do this. And you could see those connections. And I really feel like collaborating with somebody who was not in my content area helped me separate the principles of academic discourse from the content. That was something because our content was totally different. We couldn't even really talk about that. We had to just talk about how we were going to facilitate those listening and speaking skills and how to help kids be better conversationalists. And so that was very powerful to me because you could really delve into those strategies. We developed a lot of strategies for, we have huge classes, how do we deal with that? We were able to talk about how do you get kids to be more empathic and these kinds of things that are just not even content specific. So.
Right. And even some of the differences between, and even when it's not content specific, there's still those differences in a problem or not a problem. Mm-hmm. And by having that, we talked about that this morning a little bit, about how difference makes your conversation so much richer.
It does. Yeah, because you said that this morning about how teacher research can take the familiar and make it unfamiliar. Or Kathy said that. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of what it was. It made it less familiar by talking to somebody whose content was completely, because when I would read his descriptions of what he was doing in his class, I mean, I didn't know what he was talking about, differential calculus, but I understood the conversation piece.
Yeah. So you all have written a journal article. Did it stop there? Did your collaboration stop there?
Well, he is no longer in education, so it continued as long as he was in education. Mm-hmm. We worked together for the next year or so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have you seen any other spread within the building of some of these ideas?
Yes, I have had a chance to do a few professional developments on classroom discussion for the district. Mm-hmm. And so now I've had a couple of science teachers, and because of the article that we wrote was very powerful, because then it made me helped me be able to talk about discussion with other math teachers, because we did a PD and some math teachers came and they were telling me, well, we're going to come to this one because we know you and we like you and there's nothing else for math at this conference. So I was like, okay, great. And because I had that article that we had written and it was very specifically about math, they were like, oh, I see how this could work. And so that helped open those conversations. Mm-hmm. So they've kind of gotten interested. A couple of science teachers have been interested. History, it's worked really well for history. Mm-hmm. I've given out my materials a lot. So I see the idea spreading now throughout the campus and even the district. So.
Lovely. Is this so? One of the goals here would be that we can take your story that you're sharing and we can put on the literacy and learning exchange as a portrait of change. We already talked about the journal article. We definitely want to get that up and shared. Are those the discussion formats that you were talking about for how to talk through a problem?
Those are in the article.
Those are in the article? Perfect. Yeah, so those would be nice compliments. So those conversations that you have across, when you reach out and have conversations more broadly, that's a little bit about what we did this morning when we intended to have a larger practice exchange, and it ended up being a much smaller practice exchange. But could you reflect a little bit on what you took away from that conversation, or what you found valuable or challenging? Any sorts of reflections?
I really found it valuable in, I don't remember what the article is called, the one that was the excerpt from the book.
That's from Moore's teacher research.
Yes, I found that really valuable, especially the principles about how teacher research should be systematic. So helping myself be more organized about collecting data, helping to define what data looks like for my research. And then the other thing that was very powerful for me that was, I felt sort of renewed conviction, was the idea that I need to take what I learned and present it to my students and get their feedback and see if what I think I'm seeing is what they think is happening. And also to make them more aware of, okay, so I'm studying this, what do you think? And see and we do it collaboratively with them and share the information.
Well, thank you
You're welcome.
very much.
You're so welcome.
For sharing and for all the contributions that you made to the Senior Exchange and sharing your blogs.
Yeah, thank you.
Love hearing
I'm gonna try to write some more.